So let's show a little bit of code that uses the Ethernet shield as a client. Just show how some of these functions would be used. So if we look at the code, at the top, first thing we're doing is defining a MAC address. Now notice that, remember, a MAC address is 6 bytes, right? And these bytes are specified in hexadecimal. They don't have to be, but that is extremely common. It's always done for MAC addresses. Notice that each byte starts off with an OX. OX this, OX, OX, OX. So OX stands for hexadecimal in C. So OXDE, that's a hexadecimal byte, because each bit, each hexadecimal digit is 4 bits. So DE, that's 4 and 4, 8 bits altogether. So that's a MAC address that we've made up. Then next we're naming a server, car server. We're naming a string, making a string called server, which is going to be the name of the domain name of the server that we want to communicate with. Okay, so we'll just call that server as testdomain.edu, which is not, or as far as I know, is not a real domain, but we're using that. Okay, so then we want this Ethernet. We want to act as a client. So we create a client object, Ethernet client. So we've made our client object. Then inside our setup, so this is still an Arduino sketch, so it's setup and loop. In our setup, we say Ethernet.begin, right, to start off to initialize the Ethernet shield. Ethernet.begin MAC. We have to pass it the MAC address that's required, which we defined up top. We don't pass it an IP address. So what that means is we're assuming DHCP is working in our network, and DHCP is used to generate an IP address. So we get an IP address, but we don't explicitly give one in our code. Then, if client.connect, so now we're trying to make the connection from the client to that server, testdomain.edu. If client.connect server, 80. So server is the name of the server, and 80 is the port that we're talking on. Now, port 80 is devoted to HTTP traffic, meaning web traffic. So we're trying to talk to a web server, clearly. So we try to connect, and the client.connect returns a 1 or returns a true if it makes the connection. So if it does make the connection, then it goes into the if statement, client.println, and it sends that message, get index.html, http/1.1. Now, it turns out that message is the format, the HTTP format for a GET message. So what that does is it requests of a web server that's saying, give me this HTML, index.html, give me this file, which should be a web page, right, index.html. So that's actually making a request. So we send that string to calling that print line is sending that string to the server, and then call client.stop to stop communication, which, by the way, would be a silly thing to do because we wouldn't want to stop the communication immediately. We'd want to wait to receive the answer back, but we could do that. So anyway, that's it. So in this instance, we're just sending this one string requesting some information, and then we stop communication. So this is a typical client sending data to a server. Now, sending a GET request. HTTP GET request, that's its format. And port 80 is used because we're talking about HTTP, which is web. Now here's another tiny program where the client is receiving data. Now we're putting this in the loop this time. All we're doing here is we're having the client receive bytes as they're available. So when a byte is available from the server, it takes the byte and it prints it to the serial monitor, let's say. So if you look at the loop, if client available, meaning if there's a byte available, serial.print client.read. Client.read returns the byte, the first byte available, and serial.print will take it and print it to the serial monitor. And then this is loop, so it just continues in that fashion. Every time a byte's available, if client's available, then it just takes it, reads it, and prints it. And that's it. So that's a client receiving data from the server and printing it to the screen. So it receives a response and sends it to the serial monitor. Thank you.